Okay, now that we know what the steps are, let's go ahead and see if we can apply these steps to this problem here on the right and actually solve this system. Okay, so the first step, to get you have to get an x or a y by itself. So you need to have x equals or y equals somewhere. So if I look at these two equations, do I have x equals or y equals somewhere? Well, yeah, I already have this. So I already have y equals. That's what I'm looking for. So step number one, there's nothing we need to do. Okay, you can check that. Now we're going to actually substitute an expression for x or y. What did I mean by that? Well, what I mean is y equals this, right? Well, we also, if we look at the second equation, we have a y. So these two things, we can substitute that in for this y. Okay, we can substitute this in for this y. What does that look like when we actually write it out? Let's see. Well, we have, let's keep all the rest of this equation the same. Okay, so all the rest of that's going to stay the same. So we'll have 4x plus 4, okay. Now we have the y. Well, just like we always have done, when you substitute something in, you always need to use parentheses. So you're going to use parentheses, and instead of y, we're going to put this in, 4x minus 12. And then we still have the rest of this. So we still have the equals -8. So we need to make sure we have that as well, equals -8. Okay, so there was your second step. So that was what I mean when I say substitute in. We took this and we plugged it in for that y. Substitute and plugging in mean the same thing. Okay, and now we're going to actually solve for the first variable. Well, you'll notice now we have an equation where the only variable is an x, and we can solve something where there's only x's. So just like we always do, we're going to solve. Now, there's some simplification. And the good thing about this simplification is it's going to look the same almost every time in these types of problems. The first thing I notice is that there's parentheses and there's a number right before it, no plus or minus. That means we need to distribute. Okay, so first thing we had to do here was distribute. So 4 times 4x is 16. Actually, let me do this in so 16x. 4 times -12 is -48. Okay, we still have the 4x. We'll bring that down. Okay, we still have the equals, and we still have the -8. Okay, now I have a few like terms. We have 4x plus 16x. So those are like terms. So we need to make sure we combine those. So we have 20x. So 20x minus 48 equals -8. Okay, and then we have -48. So what we're going to do is add 48 to both sides. So what we get is 20x. Remember, those will cancel out because that equals 0. So 20x equals -8 plus 48 is 40. You can use a calculator if you couldn't do that in your head. We have a 20 times x, so you divide. So remember that division is going to make this 1. So that's basically becomes 1x, which is just x. So we have x equals 40 divided by 20 is 2. So now we have x equals 2. So we are done with that second step. Sorry, that third step. Boom. We have solved for the first variable. Now plug the value of the first variable into an equation. So we have two different equations up here. We know what x equals now. So we're going to take this. I'll do this in purple. We're going to take this and go ahead and plug it in up to one of these equations. Now we already have y equals here. So that's the easier equation because we're trying to find y now that we know x. If I plug in this for x, it's going to give me y. So that's what we're going to do. We'll have y equals 4 times x. Well, and this is just like the systems that we did earlier this year at this point. So this should be a pretty simple step now. We have 8 minus 12. So y equals 8 minus 12. Well, 8 minus 12 is negative, what is that, -4. Okay, now we plugged that in and we solved, so we kind of went through both of those steps. So